Hello guys, Sirgrandelot here. The 3.6 ABC cycle is a bit more difficult to compare to previous ones, and considering that we are still going to have to deal with it for more than a month, I'm going to share with you some tips and general advice that will help you in your Abyss adventures. I don't like to give advice about very specific teams because everyone's account is different. This is an AB cycle in which all the chambers in the second half can be handled by a team that is focused on AoE damage, like Milo, Bloom, Raiden Hypercarry, any team with Bennett, Kazuha, Shanli, you know, that kind of stuff. The first chamber, the first half, is an average chamber that you can clear with a team that is good at dealing with AoE damage, while the second chamber first half and third chamber first half are a single boss. What you can do is you switch your team for the first half after you clear the first chamber, getting full stars or how many stars you can. You put in some different characters that are more focused for single target damage, so that when you reach the Aeon Blight Drake and the Giga Dorito in the following chambers, you're going to have a better performing team. The first wave of the first chamber is composed of 4 ruin enemies, and their attack patterns are random. This is a very important thing to keep in mind, because the ruin defenders can create a shield right away, or they may also not. If you're struggling a bit to get full stars in the first chamber, restarting until they do not create the shield can actually save you quite a lot of time, especially because it's the first half, so restarting only takes a few seconds. For the second wave you will have to move back to the opposite side of the arena. The way that I found the easiest to deal with these two beasts is to stick to the blue one and keep the green one behind it. The reason being that the green constipated beast has a lot of attacks that make it rush at you, and if there is the blue constipated beast between the two of you, the green one will kinda hit, it will get stuck in the blue one, so they will stay close to each other and they will both get hit by all your AoE. In terms of damage output from these two beasts, I've never had particular issues, even with teams without a shield and with very moderate healing. Just dodge a few attacks that you find more obnoxious and I think that you should be fine. Let's talk about the second half. The first wave has 4 mushrooms. The one that you want to target first is the one that will spawn slightly on your right, because the Dendro mushroom will start flying almost immediately. After that, you want to immediately start walking to the left of the arena compared to the starting position, because that's where the 2 Kairagis will spawn. And you can ignore the smaller enemies because they will go walking towards you, and you just start hitting the Kairagis. Keep in mind, the Pyro one has higher Pyro resistance, the Electro one has higher Electro resistance. This is relevant because if you're dealing one of those 2 kinds of damage, that Kairagi will take a little bit less damage. So you want to try to kill them around the same time, and if you're dealing one of those 2 kinds of elemental damage, you may want to be a little bit more careful. Once the Kairagis are done, at the bottom of the arena we will have 2 other constipated beasts, the Scorpion and the Green Doggy. The Scorpion is very problematic because combined with the Green Doggy can deal a ton of damage. Luckily most of the Scorpion's attacks are fairly easy to avoid. The only one that you really need to pay attention to is the diving attack where he goes underground, but there is a huge purple circle on the ground, and if you dodge when the circle is almost full, you will not get hit. The green one has a similar attack with a green circle. The timing to dodge it is exactly the same. I usually focus the green one first, because it can be very annoying and it always comes rushing at you, whereas the Electro one, the Scorpion, if it's far from you, occasionally you will start to do some weird ranged attacks that don't do much, so I always found it easier to focus on the green one. If you bring with you a character like Bennett who applies an element to you, there is a very good chance at getting one shot here during the fight. So if that happens to you very often, the only way to do is either to change your team and not use Bennett or, whoever character is giving you an elemental infusion, or just do a bit of practice and try to avoid the attacks that get you one shot. The second chamber starts with the Aeon Blight Drake. The reason why it's very good to bring an archer with you is to shoot it down immediately when it starts flying. Don't use any burst at the beginning of the chamber because it will have high resistance and you can just dump everything on it once it lands. Even after it lands, there are occasions in which you can disable it and shoot it down. It usually revolves around him making some weird light from his face. You shoot him in the face, it will get disabled and you can start your cycle again. Eventually it will start to fly again, you can shoot it down again and restart the process. Grouping the Hilichurus in the first wave of the second half can be very difficult. Of course, if you have some animal characters, it's going to work much better. Otherwise, it's going to be problematic because I have not found a consistent way to do it. Sometimes they group up when you activate the Abyss chamber and you are right in the center, sometimes they don't. In general, what you want to do is try to clear the chamber as quickly as possible, but stay on the left side of the arena, either from the beginning or when the 3 Hilichurus are about to die, because you want to be there before the beginning of the second wave. When the Eremites spawn, you want to be near the Animal Lady. If you're not there yet, you need to run at her as fast as you can. The reason is that the Animal Lady doesn't move from there, while all the others will approach you. The Pyro one will do it very slowly, but eventually she will join the fight. 2 enemies will be summoned, an Anemo Dragon and a Pyro something. And if you have a Nakida and you want to use her elemental skill, use it after they have been summoned so that all the enemies on the field will be tagged. There will be a moment where a lot of abilities from your enemies will be thrown at you. You could be frozen, there will be a cryo cage that deals a ton of damage, a pyro explosion, there will be an Anemo Whirlwind of Doom, really a lot of stuff. So if you have a couple of bursts available, use them when things start to go south as an iframe to give you a few seconds, you know, to make sure that everything settles. And then you use your abilities and you start to kill the enemies that now should be all grouped up. The Giga Dorito doesn't need a lot of explanation because it has been in the Abyss for a while and we know him very well. You just deal damage to it, and when the Dendro turrets appear, you use Electro to trigger them. This will stun the Giga Dorito, it will go to the ground, and you dump everything that you have on it, and it will die. When you start the Mango Kinki's chamber, you want to go to the left right away, and then approach them from that direction. The Cryo Kinky could do 2 things. One is that it could stay there, at the center of the arena, and that's the best outcome. Because everything, all of them will be grouped up and you can start hitting them. The other option is that he may have dashed in your direction while you were moving around. If that happens, you need to stay in the center and wait for the Cryo Kinky to come back so that all 3 of them will be grouped up. As soon as the Cryo Kinky comes back, you keep an eye on him, and when he does the animation of the Cryo Field, you either dodge it, if you have the correct timing, or you use a burst to iframe it. At this point, if you have shield or consistent healing, you just tank the cryo field and you dump everything that you have on the Kinkies and you try to kill them quickly. If your characters cannot handle fighting in the cryo field, you can lure the cryo one, the cryo Kinky, at the edge of the arena, far away from the other 2, and you wait him there, at the very beginning of the fight. And when he starts the animation for the cryo field, you run away in direction of the other 2 Mango Kinkies. And this will make the fight be completely outside of the cryo field, although there will be a little bit of wasted time. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any specific questions about some teams or characters or other things, you can ask them in the comments. Remember to click subscribe, because once we get to 1000 subs and my channel gets monetized, maybe there will be giveaways. Hopefully, if YouTube gives me some money, we shall see. Bye guys, take care.